Welcome back. It's been some time. I hope nothing too urgent or interesting happened while I was out. First of all, to new faces, hello. My name is Jackie Cotillard, your host and operator. What is that? What is me? What is all this then? This podcast thing. To be brief, years ago, this was a micro-brewed little hobby show. I made it primarily to share my own art and highlight that of my friends before I really understood how the internet works. Events of chance continue to turn me around and strip away more practical tools and intangible attachments each time. Tragedy is a heavy word, little disasters. Without any fixed release schedule, I never considered the show to be dead, just deeply or fitfully sleeping when it went away for a few weeks or months. It's been 3 years, and I have waited. Which is where we catch up to the present. Hello, friends. Friends that may hear this before they hear from me. I've missed you, and miss you, actively. Soon. My distance and malaise I cannot explain adequately here. I'm still alive. My fearful little heart sounds for you each. My blood was already sad when I got it. But onward to our purpose here. Since the beginning of the podcast, there's been a vague but persistent gesturing at the Earth Hotel as a concept. It's been a little bit above simple theming for this show. Illustrative, but not quite solid enough to be explained or pointed at anything. Certainly to date, nothing that could truly constitute philosophy of any kind, or a model, or even an artistic thesis. Nothing to truly make a show about, simply wrap one around. It's been a vibe, a motivating meta-aesthetic, a thread that I could continue to pull, but I ended up with spiraling rooms of yarn. I will presume that a day will come when I post a half-competent digest of some pillar ideas, of mathematician Hilbert's infinite hotel paradox, a crucial early influence. There's Joanna Walsh's only somewhat less complicated travelogue Hotel. Whatever extensive analysis of Burroughs' cut-up method of writing will be prudent. But for now, let this suffice. Reports flow in daily of experiences of the empty, and the fullness of space is unreal. Some agents report great control over their perception with actively imagined locations. Some are found more passively. Parks, schools, malls, museums, great ships, halls and floors in endless permutation, circumstances piled into architecture and set alive, the abstract or intricate rooms and complexes or vast emptinesses of the building with no outside, where all is in. That place you may explore in dreams or in waking silence or meditative practice. Is this the house of treasure, of madness mind-watching? I recognized that immediately from my first documented hotel dream back in 2013, the caution of believing too much in the creations and the works of the mind. But the corroboration of friends and others who had similar experiences, the realm of mind and activity writ large, set me down a branching path of contact with the eerie aspect of reality, hiding behind our own eyes. And since I have watched that aspect explode and self-immanentize across the internet, and otherwise, until now I feel the potential for intersection to be had. Are they visiting each other as many claim? That would be quite a development, especially if the scale is anything to be believed. This is not a platform dedicated to that question set specifically, of astral projection or lucid dreaming, nor am I an expert in the neurobiology of dreaming and its mechanics, and these are not expressly or exclusively dream-centered phenomena clustering about. But such topics are right there next to us, as are discussions of virtual consciousness and holographic beings and angels, and I tire quickly of lore without reevaluation. And yet material science cannot be that which decides, not where it comes to the internal meeting the external. No, I am looking at this in a slightly and perhaps profoundly different way, though perhaps not, just in a way I've not seen precisely synthesized yet, but constantly find reflections of, parts and hints and other idea sets. And let it be said that, being not omniscient, I have a sneaking suspicion that many, many people are thinking along the same lines as I. All are welcome here to collaborate. And we may all be having the same issue when it comes to communicating any of this. Where do we even start, and how do you proceed? Beginnings are such delicate things. I understand that should I focus on one area for too long or insist in whatever small way that a hypothesis does insist, then I lose that crucial floating center, the potential of unresolved direction. I bind myself to asking and trying to answer some ever more specific question, such as the problem for what passes as prescience. So I will table these discussions for now and let fate sit with them. It is only recently that I've just begun to feel like a new exploration may be mounted. With the utmost joy and caution, and without what was before a terrible risk of going astray and bringing any of 100 blistering, vague disaster states to bear. So what does an operator do in this non-individual and non-specific role? What does a concierge and a ghost have in common? A host. These three are words, along with lurk and dwell, that I will have to return to at a future time for close attention. They are forms of ancient words, perhaps as old as the appearance of I and you, stranger, before they formed shapes on our lips. I found myself behind this desk, in this hall, waiting for you to come along and set my path alive, to be the recipient of my humble suggestions and facilitation on behalf of this obscure purpose. That's a foreboding word. What purpose? Pin purpose to the wall and leave it in a vacant corridor. Already I have veered too far down one avenue and maybe lost many and overdirected a few in the audience. I recall words from the Bene Gesserit. Do not ask why, be cautious with how. We must disengage from these to find our methods. We have techniques for this, though, ostensibly. Wasn't that a drum I beat at one particular time? The transcendent process of art making, and its ability to teach how to feel the abstract. In some sense, yes, still, absolutely. We have the abstracting particular experienceability of art as an internal skill, or a perfectly fine end if that's where you wish to go. But then I try to point art for art at the hotel by way of explanation or usefulness, and that quickly reaches its limits. Transcendence is not something I'm interested in here. It is application, applied transcendence. So, expression, art, techniques, technology. Thus we have story, that is narrative. Narrative is tricky to wield. Feeling around in the darkness and getting lost in the endless hallways of what the internet eventually has decided to call the back rooms is apparently a very compelling idea, and also not a story. Not one that can be told in itself, not without having to wrangle something else into it, like a hero plot or mythos or something more complex, like open-ended statements of form and audience. For fiction, you've got your House of Leaves or Library of Babel, your The Shining, more recently the YouTube work of Kane Pixels, a thoroughly creative backrooms work, which may yet see an A24 release. You can see elements in the 2019 game Control, among many others, and in a whole aesthetic writ large on about a dozen liminal spaces subreddits that continue to splinter because while it remains compelling at large, nothing can quite scratch that itch. You can write with the hotel or any like model, but seemingly not about it. There's such a dearth of creepypasta existentialism is out there waiting for an eager audience. I don't know of any that delves into ongoing life experiences in a way that moves beyond the hazy border of ARG or fiction. But there's something here that continues to order my life of discoveries as I stumble forward, sideways, and tangentially along it. There's something recursive about this whole endeavor, and method can only emerge after desire for use case or problematic is abandoned. Such is the surreal. Such is the liminal. I know now, after long agonizing, that there is a narrow way through for me to crowdsource expertise and unknown variation without forsaking my own security or sanctity. Whether anything materially changed or I simply settled now enough to do this, I am unsure. So, under the guise of reports, I will be presenting my own first-person forays into an extremely wide-ranging and sometimes unrelated crop of topics, all of which I will incompletely grasp and erratize, and hopefully at that, bolstered by those more qualified than I, by correction from this audience and that to come, better develop this method of interfacing with these ideas. I'm fully expecting to have many, many people tell me this thing you're verbosely flailing at was actually tightly covered 80 years ago by this writer or this whole discipline that is my doctorate, and you have mangled it, you dilettante. May you be cursed. This is a good and a welcome thing. It releases me from ignorances. I make no presumption to expertise or possession of this endeavor, and more than anything, wish to be shown I have kindred minds somewhere. So thank you. However, and again, and penultimately, I would still like to make a pleasant, listenable show relatively frequently, and not like this. So without getting too much interview interest chocolate in the creative henological peanut butter, I'm going to resume with most of our previous programming. The interviews with creatives, the music and art, the cut-up presentations, etc. I'll not telegraph it too much. I do learn, don't I? But I think each item is a better form than its predecessor in the old model. I think I finally found a balance with which to use this. The show itself, that is. Maybe that was a lot to say about not much, but my heart is freer and there's data on the feed now. Most importantly, movements and arcs unseen and inchoate have shifted their course in response to our dance, and that, friends, is an inevitability. Bit more of putting the keeping before the house. I've tried not over-explaining this a few times, so just a brief point. I started the show in a pretty different world as far as the internet and copyright goes, and that world is subject to change potentially soon. And even then, I relied a lot on fair use material, stuff like local music that doesn't have a copyright involved at all. For example, I'm concerned that if I make a playlist of local bands, or publish an old episode that has that to YouTube in addition to the normal podcast feed, fucking UMA could come along and just claim it as theirs and nuke my channel before it starts, or do it years down the road like what's happening to the Esoterica channel right now over 10 seconds of Chopin. So I'm going to keep making the big, quote, episodes made of a lot of curated pieces, not shuffled at random now, and I'll publish them on the RSS feed that'll go to your podcatcher and your What's It and your Quibi. Then anything acceptable for YouTube can be published in piecemeal segments. I primarily want to emphasize and collect my reports on YouTube for the collective comment capability and the potential for visibility to a broader audience pool, as fraught as that is. In other words, just about everything that goes on the YouTube page will get published to the podcast feed, but not necessarily the other way around, given that it's like audio compatible, that is. While we're on that subject, I am still not actively going to try to monetize any of this in terms of ads or sponsorships. However, having laid my more strict practices aside from public view, having previously sworn not to practice spiritual maneuvers for money, I will now be open to Patreon and Ko-Fi donations going forward for this project specifically, having taken mainly the ritual magic part of it out. Still, you will never hear advertising from me, unless it's like a local art gallery that trades me something, or an organization that I just want to signal boost. Fucking better help, better beat feet, because that's not happening. YouTube ads are going to be as off as I can make them without tanking my visibility completely. I'm still trans in Alabama, and I'm trying to save myself and my little family, and I've never been in a good financial state, so I can bear a little passing of the hat. It's not a sense of pride. It was a methodological issue. And I will certainly dedicate some time to do some fundraising for people beyond myself once we get a head of steam again. Link in the description of the Palestinian Children's Fund. Definitely do that before sending anything my way. This has been the opening salvo. If you're hearing this as part of episode 114, then we'll take you next to talk about a record coming out of a band that I'm in. 2 of them, in fact. amidst a chat with my friend. That's where this happened. Otherwise, thanks for starting here, at the beginning of the middle of the slim band of infinity. I will know a little bit before I die. Until time, this is your steadfast operator, call sign W. Thorne. It is so good to once again ethereally speak to your brain as a ghost of chance.